HyperCard, which has been widely used by multimedia developers, specifically as a multimedia development tool.
To date, HyperCard's been the multimedia engine of choice. Our goal is not to give any ground there and to identify the kinds of additional products we should be doing to reinforce that.
So, will Apple continue to dominate multimedia?
Very unlikely, I think. The reason is that there are so many complex technologies to master to build multimedia. It's the multi part of multimedia.
And of course, there is another major company that builds both hardware and software that will have something to say in this market before it's all over. IBM is working hard to build up its presence in the multimedia market. Early on, IBM relied heavily on its Intel DVI, or Digital Video Interactive chip, to drive its multimedia campaign. But now, Big Blue has a much more open approach to this very diverse market and is working closely with leading software players like Microsoft, Autodesk, and Authorware to offer groundbreaking solutions.
And now with the multimedia division formed, we can focus on cultivating the creators and the developers to bring to the market the tools and enablers which will allow the emergence of those multimedia solutions which we think are necessary to address our requirements in training and in education and merchandising and public information applications. And to do that, we are forming relationships with independent firms, developers of software and hardware, who can bring unique creative solutions to the multimedia environment.
IBM's partnering policy has already succeeded in bringing the leading authoring tools over to the PC platform. Presentations built with MacroMind and Authorware software can now be played on PCs, and both companies say it's a big part of their future plans to continue with this cross-platform approach.
It's a major part of our strategy over the next year to take all our products and move them across platforms, not only to the PC, but also to various workstation platforms, because we think increasingly the workstation companies are going to be participating in this market.
Some of the newer software entrants in this market also have a very open stance, building their software for PCs and Macs.
The multimedia market requires a single source for people to purchase both the hardware and the software. Right now that is just being formed in the industry, and Autodesk has taken a leadership role in that area. We've created a set of 300 qualified multimedia resellers all across the United States, where people can go and in one spot find out about all the different computer peripherals and, of course, the software needed to drive that hardware.
There is more than software and technology partnerships tying Macintoshes and PCs together in multimedia solutions. There are also enabling products like TrueVision video cards, which work across platforms, giving multimedia producers the freedom to work with the best tools from both platforms.
Worlds are colliding and the opportunities are there for everybody. The key issue that I think is going to come down line for people will be, what do you do if you have both machines inside a suite? And that's one thing we address with our hardware that works on both platforms.
This open new world of multimedia has room for many players of all sizes. IBM and Apple will no doubt lead the way, and companies like Sony and Microsoft will also be forces. But by their own admission, all these giants will rely on the creativity of innovative new companies, helping multimedia blossom in 1991. Because the PC is so demonstration intensive, many vendors are offering a variety of videotapes for training and promotion. We'll take a quick look at a few tapes you can order. First is Information at Your Fingertips, Microsoft's widely advertised 54-minute peek into the future from last year's Comdex. It costs $10.
The machine puts up the verbs that might be relevant to the thing we're pointing to at that time. In this case, we ask to see the data. There's two changes we need to make to the data. The first is we'll change the date. That will cause the query that's inside this spreadsheet to be rerun, and we'll get the latest capacity information.
IBM takes 15 minutes to ask you to imagine the possibilities for creating multimedia using its PS2 processors and associated peripherals. This tape is free.
Lights, computer, action. IBM's PS2 and microchannel puts you in the director's chair. Now you can create exciting presentations that come alive with 4 new products from IBM called the Audio-Visual Connection,
Finally, spend an hour and $50 on a tape called Interactive Digital Video from the Association for Computing Machinery.
Velocity and color. And these changes in attributes trigger other simulation modules, which in turn modify other objects.
Now let's look at one of the hottest segments of the PC industry, notebook computers. Paul Schindler reviews the pros and cons of some of the top contenders.
That's where portable computing began. In 1981, the 26-pound K-Pro was state-of-the-art, but with its bulk, its weight, and its industrial design, it was neither very stately nor very artistic, and you had to plug it in to make it work. On the other hand, literally, is the current state of portable computing, powered by Intel's 386SX chip and able to run for hours on internal batteries. First on the market, and still the benchmark against which others are measured, is the Compaq LTE 386S20. Included in this diminutive package are a 20 MHz 386SX processor, 2 megabytes of memory, which you can expand to 10 megabytes, either a 30 or 60 megabyte hard disk, and a floppy disk drive. The LTE's keyboard is something of a disappointment. It's completely flat and a bit on the mushy side, but still usable even if the numeric keypad shares keys with the regular keyboard and the cursor controls are badly positioned. Compaq had the early lead in the race to cram real desktop power into a lightweight package, but other vendors have quickly joined the contest. First is the distinctive black GridCase 1550ZX, which is far and away the largest of this group, measuring more than 15 inches in length and weighing in at a hefty 13.5 pounds. That's about twice the weight of AST's admirably compact Premium Exec. The AST system is also the least expensive in our collection, $3,000 to $3,800 depending on the hard disk. Almost as light and a bit smaller is the Samsung NoteMaster, next on our notebook lineup. Here's the featherweight champion, the TI TravelMate 3000, only 5.5 pounds and smaller than the others too. The lightweight packaging, however, raises questions of durability in the travel environment. Finally, we have Toshiba's T2000SX. The Toshiba and Samsung systems include a 16 MHz 386SX. The GridCase, AST, and Compaq models sport the more powerful 20 MHz processors. All the machines we're viewing include a 3.5-inch floppy and at least a 20 megabyte hard drive. Each one has a serial port and a parallel port and a connection for an external color VGA monitor. LCD screens are always controversial. Grids has the largest dimensions and good brightness. The AST and Samsung offer good screen quality, though their screen size is a little smaller than Grids. The Toshiba's screen was noticeably dimmer than the others, making it difficult to read in bright light. All of these systems are powerful enough to run Microsoft Windows, today's hot graphic environment. We suggest you try Windows out before making major purchases of any portable, however, because the way a portable translates Windows colorful displays to a grayscale LCD screen may not be wholly satisfactory. Note also that the mouse disappears when you move it across the typical LCD screen. You don't always get all you pay for, and I'm going to suggest that you look beyond the big name in selection of a portable. Compaq system was the first, but it's no lighter, nor more powerful, nor easier to use than its close competitors. It is the most expensive, though. For PC Vision, I'm Paul Schindler.
We recently spoke with Philippe Kahn, Chief Executive of Borland International. I think you'll agree that this interview is almost as good as a face-to-face meeting.
We don't believe that operating systems are as important as people said they would be. I'm always amazed to see the whole industry focusing on operating systems. I mean, in the last year, the only thing we've heard is wars between Windows and OS/2, etc. And frankly, it's not important. Imagine geography classes where the only thing you learn about a country is its toilets, its roads, and its airports, which are basically the services, the system services for a country. Well, there's the same thing for computers. People shouldn't be talking about operating systems. Operating systems are just system services. What's important are the enabling applications and technologies. I think we should defocus this argument about Windows and OS. So let's talk about what these environments do for customers, what applications, what new frontiers can be explored by software companies, by customers, and how much more productive we can be with those environments. Turbo Pascal brings to Windows the first and most powerful hosted development environment for Windows. In most cases, the development systems for Windows that are addressed to programmers are really addressed to people who are doing hardcore work in character-based environment that will run under Windows. Whereas Hello World being brought up on a screen, say in C, in Microsoft C or some product like that, will take more than 100 lines of code, and Turbo Pascal basically takes 3 lines of code. So we kept on building the company on ideas and on technology we were building, because at the core of the company we were a group of technical people who were actually more interested in making software evolve than actually making a quick buck. As a matter of fact, the business success was an accident. And it's probably why we're successful, because we never planned that. Frankly, I was expecting to have a company with 6 or 10 people building software, licensing it, and paying the rent. We never thought that we'd build one of the successful software companies. And that's maybe why we succeeded. The pricing game was just something that was the right time for the right thing. Today we're competing in spreadsheets at equal pricing basically with Lotus. As a matter of fact, our products tend to be a little more expensive, and we're still gaining share. And I think that what's happening is that people know that we have the superior spreadsheet. And databases, Paradox from being a 3% market share holder is now the leader in the marketplace. And those are not low-priced units. So I think it would be totally inappropriate to think that the Japanese cannot compete in software. As a matter of fact, they can. Look at, for example, Nintendo games is just the beginning. Who would have thought that Japanese-made games could actually become the #1 seller for kids and people who have a different culture? Nobody would have thought that. Well, that's what happened. So think about the rest. I would absolutely not discard that. As a matter of fact, if you look at Sony's acquisition of a film company, of a record label, CBS, etc., and the fact that they call all of that software, they have a very broad conscience of the environment. So I would never discard the Japanese, and I would say that if we want to keep those jobs in America, if we want to keep that, that leadership, we need to focus on innovation, on making sure that we take advantage of new environments and that we reach new frontiers. We don't produce ever the same spreadsheet, the same database manager, the same word processor, that we expand the whole idea.
While we're on the subject of Philippe Kahn, the battle of the paradigms has been joined. Apple's HyperCard views data as linked cards. Now Borland challenges that view with Object Vision, which sees the world as a stack of forms. Valerie Thomas reports.
Object Vision is Borland International's recently released Windows application development environment. It isn't the first object-oriented development environment, and it isn't the first user-programmable Windows tool, but it is one of the first to combine these two elements. Object Vision starts with a blank screen, but its wealth of predefined objects enables a user to fill the screen quickly. A name field, followed by a date field, with a choice of date styles. The form can be rearranged to make room for the title. With just 3 clicks, the form is linked to a new or existing database. The active linking brings up all database manipulation buttons, which can be rearranged. Object Vision allows users to write programs without using if-then-else procedural logic. It does this with trees and branches. In this case, branch on audience size and fill in the remarks field depending on that size. Here's a key element of Object Vision, the visual programming language. It enables someone else to come along afterwards and figure out what the program does, how it does it, and why it does it. Users don't create in this language. Object Vision creates it as the user simply does what comes naturally. The result of this simple application is that when the audience size is filled in, the remarks appear automatically. Much more complex and colorful applications can be created as well, as shown here. We should also note that Object Vision includes the entire Borland Quattro Pro Recalc engine, so that anyone familiar with how to write a Quattro Pro or Lotus formula, and that's almost all power users, should be able to write a formula in Object Vision. For a perspective on Object Vision, we talked to San Francisco consultant Richard Dalton, author of a prescient and provocative 1980 report entitled, Are Programmers Really Necessary?
Object Vision is a landmark of sorts in graphically based development systems, but I'm not convinced everybody's ready for programming tools at this point. The situation with application development strikes me as very similar to desktop publishing in the early 1980s, where a number of people tried it out and found out they weren't designers. Many people now are trying out application development tools and finding out they aren't programmers. The incentive to develop your own business processes, automated processes, is one that I would question. There are many people who would prefer to see professional programmers or analysts do that part of the activity.
For PC Vision, this is Valerie Thomas.
Intel has been successful providing smaller and faster processors with its new 486 chip. There is now speculation about the 586, even if the company won't talk about it yet. But will software keep pace with these faster chips?
Over the past several years, if you look at it, we've continued to reduce the size of transistors, being able to put more transistors on a chip. Therefore, we can make chips more and more powerful. With more and more powerful chips, you can deliver more benefits to the end user in terms of performance and capabilities. So I think the trends are clearly to make things better, faster, and cheaper for the foreseeable future. With more powerful chips, we can really focus those transistors at the human interface. So I see a lot of those transistors being used for technologies such as graphics, to make things look more lifelike, to bring video onto a computer, to add audio and speech recognition capabilities, to make it more interacting with a person.
But don't expect these features to appear overnight.
It's really difficult to estimate when the 586 is going to get here because Intel publicly won't say anything about their schedules. But from the kind of rumors that we've been seeing lately, it's apparent that Intel is starting to talk to their major accounts about it. Judging from what happened with the 386 and the 486, that would probably put it about somewhere between 12 and 18 months out for first samples.
I think you'll see a chip that has very similar characteristics functionally to a 486. That is, I don't think it'll be dramatically different in terms of function, but should be anywhere from 2 to maybe 4 times as fast.
Speedier chips let users run familiar applications more quickly. Early reports of the Intel 586 suggest that it could have a clock speed of 66 megahertz, twice as fast as that of today's top-of-the-line 486. Everybody wants speed, but the types of programs that run on PCs haven't changed much in the past 2 years. Is hardware running ahead of software?
To some degree, I think software will exploit it right from the beginning. There was a very difficult transition that the software industry has been going through in moving from the 8086 through the 286 and onto the 386, where there were really fundamental differences between these chips that took a lot of software rewriting to exploit. But the 386, the 486, and the 586 are all basically, I think, going to be about the same chip from the software developer's point of view. So really, it's a matter of exploiting the speed.
People argue that the software vendors haven't really even taken advantage of the 386 yet. Most of the applications that run on PCs are still basically 16-bit applications and don't even use the 32-bit address space available on the older chips. It will be quite a while, I think, before anything can take advantage of the 486 fully.
The fundamental limits of technology, we're not even close to reaching at this point. We have plenty of time to continue along an evolutionary path as we research, if you will, more revolutionary paths. So I don't at this point see any end into where we can push the technology to deliver better, faster, cheaper.
Joining us now from Boston is Will Zachman, computer industry analyst and president of Canopus Research.
Lack of success for OS/2 has strained relations between IBM and Microsoft. OS/2's original development partners clearly differ over how to deal with OS/2's non-success. Microsoft recently has chosen to emphasize Windows virtually to the exclusion of the OS/2's presentation manager. And this has led to proclamations by analysts and articles in the press about a supposed divorce between Microsoft and IBM and of the purported demise of OS/2 as well. If these stories are to be believed, OS/2 is dead and Windows lives in its place. Are OS/2 and the OS/2 Presentation Manager really dead? Is Windows destined to rule the Office desktop to the complete exclusion of OS/2? No way. Not only are reports of OS/2's death greatly exaggerated, but reports of sweeping victory for Windows are almost equally overblown. Windows certainly is doing very well, but it is far from dominating anything the way it has dominated recent press coverage. Not only is OS/2 not dead, but the OS/2 Presentation Manager is far from ready for the grave as well. Sales of Windows, though impressive, fall far short of the numbers required to saturate the installed base of IBM and compatible systems. Moreover, Windows is being used more for its ability to run multiple DOS tasks and to provide extended memory management for them than it is for its graphical user interface or because of Windows applications. Sales of Windows applications, in fact, lag far behind reported sales of Windows itself. Now, OS/2 2.0, soon to be released by IBM, will actually run multiple DOS applications better than Windows does. It will provide a more stable and more reliable environment for networking than does Windows. No, OS/2 is not dead. OS/2 2.0, in fact, is likely to be a better option than DOS and Windows for many users, particularly for those in networked environments or those running high-performance mission-critical applications. Believe me, the folks who've been running around proclaiming the death of OS/2 are going to look pretty darn silly a year from now.
This public service note. The Computer Museum in Boston is raising money again this year with the Computer Bowl in San Jose on April 26th. For details, contact the museum. That wraps up our show. Thanks for joining us. We have an exciting editorial lineup for the rest of 1991. Remember, you could try to read everything written about the PC, or you could look at it this way. For all of us at PC Vision, I'm Barrett Clark.